Men over 60, there is something we must speak about plainly yet compassionately, because too many of you are living with silent discomforts that you assume are simply part of growing older. The frequent nighttime trips to the bathroom, the weak stream, the lingering dribble even after you finish, the pressure or heaviness deep in the pelvis. These are dismissed as old age, but they are not inevitabilities. They are signs from the body, signals that the prostate is asking for help. And what many men don't realize is that it isn't always disease or hormones or genetics causing the trouble. Often it is the small choices made throughout the day, and especially at night. Habits that seem harmless, routines repeated for years, patterns you would never suspect can quietly place stress on the prostate and the bladder. Over time, they weaken the muscles that control flow, inflame the tissues around the prostate, and disrupt the very circulation needed to keep this area healthy. The encouraging news is this: the body is remarkably responsive when we remove the burdens and give it the support it needs. You don't need pills, procedures, or complicated routines to begin improving prostate comfort, urinary control, or sexual vitality. Sometimes it starts by understanding what you're doing in the hours before bed and what those habits are doing to you. In this lesson, I will walk you through 7 bedtime habits that quietly strain the prostate, disrupt sleep, and worsen urinary leakage and nighttime urgency. Some of these may surprise you. Some may be things you have done for decades without thinking twice. We will look at each habit gently and clearly, why it affects the prostate, what it does inside the body, and most importantly, how to correct it. And as we progress, you will begin to see that your nighttime discomforts are not mysteries. They are predictable, understandable, and fixable. So let us begin. And at the end, I will give you a simple nightly routine that supports the bladder, calms inflammation, and helps strengthen the muscles responsible for control. It is never too late to restore comfort, confidence, and peaceful sleep. One of the most overlooked causes of nighttime prostate discomfort is simply drinking too much liquid too close to bedtime. It seems harmless: a cup of tea, a glass of water, perhaps even a warm drink to help you relax. But for the prostate and bladder, the timing of those fluids matters far more than most men realize. After the age of 60, the bladder does not empty the same way it once did. The muscles at the base of the pelvis, the ones responsible for control and flow, naturally weaken with time. The prostate itself may enlarge slightly, narrowing the passage where urine travels. These two changes mean that even a normal amount of fluid becomes more difficult for the body to manage at night. When you drink late in the evening, the kidneys continue filtering that liquid for several hours. They do not sleep when you do. And because the bladder fills faster than it used to, it sends signals that wake you repeatedly through the night. Each interruption strains the muscles involved in urinary control and prevents the bladder from resting long enough to recover. But there is another layer to this. Constant nighttime filling irritates the tissues around the prostate. That irritation leads to swelling, and swelling leads to more pressure, which then leads to more urgency, more dribbling, and more nighttime awakenings. It becomes a cycle many men recognize but do not know how to break. Late night drinking also affects sodium and fluid balance in the body. When these are disrupted, the body holds on to more water, and that additional fluid pushes against the lower abdomen. The prostate, which already sits in a very crowded space, becomes compressed even further. The remedy is simple but powerful. Shift your hydration earlier in the day. Keep your largest water intake between morning and late afternoon. In the evening, sip only what is necessary, not out of habit, but out of intention. Most men notice improvements within days: fewer nighttime awakenings, better flow, less dribbling, and a sense of relaxation returning to the pelvic area. The prostate rests more easily when the bladder is not demanding constant attention. And now that we've addressed fluids, let's move to another pattern that many men never suspect: a nightly habit that affects circulation, tightens the pelvic floor, and subtly strains the prostate without a single symptom until years later. Another habit that quietly strains the prostate yet rarely gets spoken about is simply sitting for long stretches in the evening. Many men over 60 have an established nighttime routine, a favorite chair, a television program, reading on the sofa, scrolling on a tablet, or relaxing at the computer. It feels peaceful, it feels familiar, but inside the body something very different is happening. When you sit for long periods, the weight of the upper body presses directly onto the pelvis. Blood flow through the lower abdomen slows, and the veins responsible for draining the prostate become compressed. Unlike the arteries, which push blood forward with each heartbeat, veins depend heavily on movement, the shifting of muscles, the lifting and lowering of the diaphragm, the natural motion of walking to keep circulation flowing smoothly. Without movement, the pelvic bowl becomes still, and stillness in this region leads to stagnation. For the prostate, this stagnation shows up as congestion, a sense of fullness, pressure, or heaviness that many men recognize but cannot explain. Congested tissue becomes more sensitive to inflammation. It swells more easily. It reacts more strongly to even small irritants, whether from diet, stress, or hormonal changes. You may not feel this happening in the moment. The body is subtle, that an hour or two of sitting each night accumulates over the years until circulation in the prostate becomes sluggish, the surrounding muscles become tight, and the bladder begins overcompensating for the pressure. This also affects the pelvic floor, the hammock of muscles that controls flow and supports the bladder. Sitting for long stretches can leave this group of muscles shortened and weak. When these muscles are not allowed to move and lengthen, they lose part of their natural tone. A weak pelvic floor cannot support the urethra properly, which leads to dribbling after urination, difficulty initiating a strong stream, and the feeling that the bladder is never quite empty. The solution is gentle, and it requires no equipment at all: movement. Stand up every 20 to 30 minutes. In the evening, walk for a minute or two around your home. Stretch your hips. Gently roll the pelvis. Take a few deep breaths into the lower abdomen. These small actions restore blood flow dramatically and relieve the quiet pressure that builds around the prostate. Most men are astonished at how much this one simple practice helps. Especially when combined with improved fluid timing from section 1, the heaviness lessens, the urgency decreases, and the entire pelvic region feels freer. Now that we've restored circulation, let's look at a nighttime habit that directly affects inflammation, one that most men have never connected to their prostate health, yet it plays a powerful role in swelling, irritation, and restless nights. Now that we've addressed circulation and the importance of movement in the evening, we must turn our attention to something just as influential: the evening meal. Many men over 60 enjoy their largest meal at night, believing it helps them feel satisfied before sleep. But the truth is that late heavy eating places a tremendous burden on the body, especially on the organs surrounding the prostate. When you eat a large meal close to bedtime, digestion must continue through the night. The stomach works, the liver works, the pancreas works, while the rest of the body is trying to rest and repair. This internal activity raises inflammation throughout the abdomen, and the prostate, which sits in a confined, sensitive area, often feels this swelling more intensely than other organs. The prostate is encircled by tissues that respond quickly to heat and inflammation. When digestion is active late at night, blood flow is pulled toward the stomach and intestines. This creates pressure and congestion in the lower abdomen, and the prostate becomes more reactive. Men often experience this as nighttime urgency, discomfort, or the sense that something just isn't right in the pelvic region. There is also the matter of insulin. Heavy evening meals, especially those rich in carbohydrates, cause insulin to rise at a time when the body should be lowering it. Elevated insulin not only interferes with hormone balance, but also contributes to fluid retention, making the bladder more active and sensitive during the night. Additionally, the digestive tract produces gas and internal pressure as food breaks down, particularly when meals include late-night bread, pasta, fried foods, or sweets. This internal pressure pushes downward directly against the bladder and prostate. It is a form of mechanical irritation that many men never consider, yet it can be one of the most direct contributors to nighttime frequency and dribbling. The solution is gentle and entirely natural. Shift your heavier meals earlier in the day. Allow dinner to be lighter. Simple vegetables, a small portion of protein, or a soup. Give your digestive system enough time to settle before sleep. When digestion is calm, inflammation decreases and the pelvis can remain relaxed throughout the night. Many men report that their nighttime urgency improves within a week of making this change. The lower abdomen feels quieter, the pressure lessens, and the prostate settles. Now, with inflammation addressed, we can move toward a habit that affects the prostate through an entirely different pathway, one that disrupts hormones, weakens bladder control, and interferes with the body's ability to repair during sleep. Now that we've calmed the digestive load on the body, we need to look at another silent disruptor, one that many men don't associate with prostate health at all. Yet its influence on hormones, bladder control, and nighttime repair is profound. I'm speaking of late-night screen use, phones, tablets, televisions, and computer screens that remain glowing long after the sun has set. The body was designed to follow the rhythm of light and darkness. When evening comes, the brain releases a hormone called melatonin, a key regulator of sleep, repair, and hormonal balance. Melatonin signals the entire body to shift into restoration mode. Blood pressure lowers, inflammation calms, the bladder becomes less reactive, and the prostate is given a chance to decompress from the pressures of the day. But when a bright screen is only inches from your face at night, the brain receives a very different message. Blue light from screens mimics daylight. It tells the body, stay awake, stay alert. This is not the time for healing. And the moment melatonin drops, several important things happen. First, inflammation increases. The prostate, which has already spent many years under mechanical pressure, becomes more reactive when the hormonal signals of nightfall are disrupted. But screens elevate it, making the bladder more sensitive, the pelvic muscles tighter, and nighttime urination more frequent. Third, testosterone production falls. Testosterone is made largely while you sleep. When melatonin is suppressed and sleep quality declines, testosterone drops. And this affects everything from prostate function to erectile strength. Many men think the problem begins in the prostate, but often it begins with chronically poor sleep. Fourth, neurological pathways weaken. The nerves that help the bladder and prostate communicate, hold or release signals depend on deep restorative sleep. When the brain is overstimulated by screens late at night, these pathways do not reset properly. This is why some men wake frequently, feel they haven't fully emptied their bladder, or experience dribbling despite trying to stop the flow. These changes don't occur all at once. They build quietly over months and years, but they often improve remarkably quickly when screen exposure is reduced. A simple, natural adjustment makes the world of difference. Turn off screens at least 1 hour before bed. Allow the body to experience true darkness. This single habit helps melatonin rise, lowers cortisol, encourages testosterone production, and gives the bladder and prostate the calm environment they need to rest. Now that we've explored how nighttime light disrupts repair, let's turn to a habit that affects the pelvic region through a different pathway, something tied to circulation, fluid retention, and the delicate balance of the kidneys and bladder. Now that we've addressed the effect of late-night screens on hormonal balance and the body's natural repair cycle, we must look at another common habit that quietly disrupts the prostate: drinking large amounts of fluid in the evening. Many men do this without realizing how strongly it affects the bladder, the pelvic nerves, and ultimately the prostate itself. Throughout the day, the kidneys filter waste and regulate the body's fluid balance. By evening, their activity slows, the body prepares for rest. But when a large amount of liquid is consumed close to bedtime, the kidneys must accelerate their work again. This creates a surge of urine production at the very time the bladder and prostate should be resting. The bladder, once filled, presses directly against the prostate, and for men over 60, this pressure can be far more noticeable. Age naturally causes the bladder muscles to weaken slightly, and the prostate tissues to become more sensitive. A late surge of fluid can overwhelm these tissues, forcing them to respond when they should be calm. This often leads to several nighttime problems: frequent trips to the bathroom, Even one or two awakenings are enough to fragment sleep, lowering testosterone, increasing inflammation, and weakening the pelvic nerves that control bladder flow. Stronger urgency with less control. When the bladder fills rapidly, the nerves send sharper, more urgent signals. This sensation often worsens in men who already have prostate enlargement or irritation. Post-void dribbling. The prostate acts like a soft gate the urine must pass through. When it becomes compressed by a full bladder, the gate does not completely close. This leads to the small involuntary dribble many men notice after urinating, especially at night or early morning. Pelvic tension. When sleep is repeatedly interrupted, the deep muscles of the pelvis do not fully relax. Over time, this contributes to chronic tightness around the prostate, which further restricts flow. What many men don't realize is that the type of fluid matters as well. Herbal teas, plain water, and warm drinks support the body gently. But caffeinated beverages, carbonated drinks, and alcohol irritate the bladder wall and amplify nighttime urgency. Coffee after dinner, sparkling water in the evening, and even a small amount of alcohol before bed can all place unnecessary strain on the pelvic region. The solution is simple and deeply effective. Finish your main fluid intake earlier in the day. Sip lightly in the evening and avoid caffeine and alcohol after mid-afternoon. This alone can reduce nighttime urination, calm the prostate, and improve the depth of your sleep, which in turn supports hormones, circulation, and overall vitality. And now that we've addressed mechanical pressure and nighttime bladder strain, we can move to a habit that affects the prostate through an entirely different pathway by interfering with the body's detoxification systems and its ability to reduce inflammation from within. Now that we've reduced the pressure placed on the bladder through late-night drinking, it's important to look deeper into one of the body's most overlooked nighttime systems, detoxification. Every night while you sleep, the body works to clear waste, repair tissue, and restore balance. But when this process is compromised, inflammation quietly rises, and the prostate often feels the consequences. The liver is the body's primary detoxification organ, and it follows a natural rhythm. In the early hours of the night, when melatonin is high and the nervous system has fully relaxed, the liver becomes especially active. It processes hormones, filters toxins, and helps reduce systemic inflammation. This process is vital for all men, but for those over 60, it is indispensable. But when the body enters the night in a state of digestive congestion, emotional tension, or poor mineral balance, detoxification becomes sluggish. And when the liver struggles, other organs feel the strain, especially those in the pelvic region. A slow or overburdened detox system affects the prostate in several ways. Inflammation remains elevated. The prostate is highly responsive to inflammation. If the liver cannot adequately process inflammatory byproducts, these compounds persist in the bloodstream and settle in sensitive tissues, including the prostate. Hormones fail to rebalance. Testosterone and estrogen must be properly metabolized by the liver every night. When detoxification is sluggish, hormonal balance drifts off course. Even a small increase in estrogenic activity can make the prostate more irritable, leading to swelling and nighttime urgency. Pelvic circulation weakens. The lymphatic system, another crucial detox pathway, drains waste from the lower abdomen and pelvic area. If the lymph system becomes stagnant, fluid retention increases, placing gentle but continuous pressure on the prostate. The bladder becomes more reactive. Toxins circulating through the kidneys and bladder irritate the bladder lining. This makes it more sensitive, more urgent, and less able to hold urine comfortably through the night. The encouraging truth is that detoxification is not complicated. The body simply needs the right conditions: a lighter evening meal, time to rest before lying down, deep breathing to calm the nervous system, gentle herbal support such as chamomile, ginger, or fennel, and most importantly, restorative sleep uninterrupted by screens or bladder pressure. When detoxification improves, many men notice a surprising difference: less nighttime urination, a quieter prostate, better hormonal rhythm, and greater overall comfort. What feels like prostate trouble is often at its core the body's request for a gentler, cleaner, more supportive nighttime environment. Now that we've explored the role of internal detoxification, we can transition to something far more physical, a habit involving posture and pressure that most men never think about, yet it silently affects both the bladder and prostate every single night. Now that we've explored how detoxification affects inflammation in the prostate, we can turn to something far more mechanical, something most men overlook entirely: the position you sleep in. The way you lie through the night can either relieve pressure from the bladder and prostate or silently worsen it. For men over 60, the tissues surrounding the prostate are more sensitive than they once were. Circulation may be slower, the pelvic floor may be tighter, and the bladder may not empty as completely as it used to. When a man sleeps in a position that compresses the lower abdomen or restricts pelvic circulation even slightly, these delicate tissues can become irritated through the night. This is especially true for stomach sleepers. When you lie face down, your full body weight presses into the lower abdomen. This increases internal pressure on the bladder and prostate, reducing blood flow and creating a subtle, constant irritation. Many men in this position also arch their lower back slightly, tightening the pelvic floor, which can make dribbling, urgency, and nighttime frequency worse. Side sleeping, while better for many, can also cause issues if the hips are twisted or unsupported. A rotated pelvis places uneven tension on the pelvic floor muscles. Over several hours, this can create enough tightness to affect both urination and prostate comfort the following day. Back sleeping, when done correctly, is generally the most supportive. It allows the bladder and prostate to rest without compression. The pelvic floor relaxes, circulation moves freely, and the spine maintains its natural alignment. But even back sleeping can cause issues if the mattress is too soft, allowing the lower back to collapse and placing hidden tension on the pelvic nerves. The key is not perfection, it is awareness. The prostate thrives when circulation flows freely and when the abdomen is relaxed. Small adjustments can make a profound difference. Place a pillow beneath the knees when lying on your back to reduce pelvic tension. If you prefer side sleeping, place a pillow between the thighs to keep the hips aligned. If you are a stomach sleeper, consider gradually transitioning away from that position. It is one of the most consistent contributors to nighttime bladder pressure in older men. Ensure your mattress supports the lower back instead of sinking beneath it. Many men notice improvements within a few nights: deeper sleep, less urgency, less pressure in the pelvic region, and fewer spasms of the prostate. Something as simple as positioning can restore the natural breathing space the pelvic organs need. As we bring everything together, I want to leave you with this simple truth. The prostate is not an organ that suddenly fails. It responds. It reacts. It reflects the rhythms, pressures, and habits that shape your days and nights. And the good news is this: when you begin supporting the body in the ways it has been quietly asking for, the prostate often improves far more quickly than you expect. You've now seen how each habit we discuss plays a part. Circulation must be encouraged, especially in the evening. Heavy late meals must be eased, allowing digestion to settle. Screens must be dimmed so hormones can rebalance. Fluids must be timed wisely to give the bladder peace. Detoxification must be supported so inflammation can fall. Sleeping position must protect the pelvic region, not compress it. None of these require medication. None require harsh interventions. They work because they restore the natural conditions your body depends on. Conditions that were present when things worked well, and that can be present again. If these insights have been helpful, I encourage you to stay connected. There is so much more we can explore together about circulation, hormones, pelvic health, and natural vitality for men over 60. And if you found value in this lecture, please consider subscribing or sharing this video with someone who may benefit. You never know whose life you might improve by passing along information rooted in natural, gentle healing. Your body is capable of remarkable restoration. You simply have to give it the chance.